Ladies and gentlemen, Sharon Olds.
Oh my, what a generous, warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here at this generous and warm festival again. The feeling in the room is so good. I'm sorry that the dancing is on pause for a bit. That really looked good. So I thought that I would, oh, look at that, I could do that, yeah. Let's see, okay. I thought that I would, since I've been working and working to put together my new manuscript and to take out of it all candidates that I have decided are not, up to the standard I'm trying to have for this book. So I thought tonight I would read. First, I always start with poems I didn't write, and then I start with some poems from books, and then I just took some of my favorites from the book that I'm putting together. So, in Australia, when I was there, every public event begins with something called Welcome to Country, in which a member of the people who are native to the land that the auditorium is built on welcome us to the country, to the actual land. And so I can't do that welcome tonight, but I thought instead I could read this poem called Won't You Celebrate With Me? It's a kind of welcome to poetry country in a way. Lucille Clifton. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up, here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Yes. And I would like to read next a poem of Tom Lux as a way of thanking Tom for his wonderful poems, his wonderful spirit, the home runs I would see him hit on the Sarah Lawrence Field when poor NYU would try to, to see that soaring. And just his combination of wit, salt, kindness, and just creative, just that wonderful person and poet. So here's a poem of Tom's. And it's in honor of his family. And I was thinking of this also because of sitting with Miles and Mimi and their daughter at the table tonight. Your baby grows a tooth, then 2, and 4, and 5. Then she wants some meat directly from the bone. It's all over. She'll learn some words. She'll fall in love with cretins, dolts, a sweet talker on his way to jail. And you and your wife get old, fly blown, and rue nothing. You did, you loved, your feet are sore, it's dusk, your daughter's tall. Sometimes I'm surprised the extent of the joy that we receive from thinking about our friends. Sometimes the grief is much bigger than the joy, and tonight I'm feeling honor and pleasure to be here all together in the writing family, thinking about our friends. I always like to read a poem that I wrote that I've never read before. And this is called Ballad with a Quatrain for an Epigraph. Sounds kind of academic, doesn't it? Maybe not. I know where I'm going. I know who's going with me. I know who I love, and the dear know who I'll marry. There's something good about having shaking hands. It gives me a character to play, a kindly elder, and it's a bid for attention. In fact, it's an essential, a benign, intentional tremor, which means if you try hard not to shake, your arm suddenly throws the content of a cup of coffee across the room. It's a very small disability, but this morning I watched my wrist move on its own and saw that my body is slowly going away from me. And I know where it's going, unmarried, into the ground, taking me and my heart with it in honorable, fortunate death alone. I know where I'm going. I know who's going with me. That's it. And this is a poem from the book before Stag's Leap, which I don't remember what it's called. But this is the poem that ended that book. And it's called Psalm. Bending over at the August table, where the summer towels are kept, putting a stack on the bottom shelf, I felt his kiss in its shock of whiskers on an inner curve of that place I know by his knowing, have seen with the vision of his touch, to be entered thus on a hip-high table piled with sheaves of towels, bath and hand, terry cloth, Eden, is to feel at one's center a core of liquid heat as if one is an earth. Sometime later, we were kissing in near sleep. I think we did it this time, I whispered. I think we're joined at the hip. He has a smile from the heart at this hour. I live in its light. I gnaw very softly on his jaw. Would you want me to eat you in the Andes in a plane crash? I murmur, to survive. Yes, we smile. He asks, would you want me to eat you to survive? I would love it, I cry out. We almost sleep. There is a series of arms around us and between us in sets, touches given as if received. Did you think we were going to turn into each other? And I get one of those smiles, as if his face is a speckled, rubbled, sandy, satiny cactus flower 8 inches across. Yes, he whispers. I know he is humoring, rote, sweet talking. A sliver of late sun is coming through between the curtains. It lights the scaly surfaces of my knuckles its line like a needle held to cleanse it above a match. I move my wedding finger to stand in the slit of flame. From the ring's curve there rises a fan of borealis fur like the first instant of sunrise. Do not tell me this could end. Do not tell me. I notice when I'm reading it, and when we're thinking of writing new poems also, there's a certain sense I have of a kind of faithfulness to the truth of an hour of experience, even though it is not the present hour. And how sad it would be if we couldn't celebrate everything that, we feel like celebrating, whether it's with us or not. I guess I'm sort of feeling some of the comfort of art transcending time in a way. Yeah. And then this book, Stag's Leap, which is an end of long marriage book. And, I thought I looked for what would be the closest to a Me Too poem of some kind in this book. This book has been criticized sometimes for not being angry enough. And it seems to me partly to be a portrait of someone who doesn't know how to be angry in a certain way and hopefully will learn how. So this is one of the poems from Stag's Leap that I think of when I think of whether the book is too mollycoddly. Frontis nulla fides. Don't read a book by its cover. Something like that. It's from a long ago Latin writer. Frontis nulla fides, and Shakespeare used that source. Plutarch, I think. Shakespeare used that source in Macbeth. Frontis nulla fides. Sometimes now, I think of the back of his head as a physiognomy, blunt, rich as if with facial hair, the convex stonewall shapes of the skull like brow, nose, cheeks, as hard to read as surfaces of the earth. He was as mysterious to me as that phrenology, occiput, lamboid, but known like a home outcrop of rock, and his quiet had the truthfulness, for me, of something older than the human. I knew and did not know his brain and its woody mountain casing, but the sheer familiarness of his brow was like a kind of knowledge. I had my favorite pores on its skin, and the chaos, multiplicity, and generousness of them was like the massy stars over the desert. He hardly ever frowned. He seemed serene, as if above or alien to anger. Now, I can see that his eyes were sometimes bleak or sullen, but I saw them as lakes. One could sound them and receive no sense of their bounds or beds. Something in the paucity of his cheeks, the sunken cheekbones always touched me. Bold, old English cartilage of the nose, wide, eloquent curve of the archer's bow. Its quiver sometimes empty, as if languagelessness was a step up in evolution from the chatter of consciousness. Now that I travel the land of his sealed mask of self in memory again, touching his contours as if I am the singing blind, I feel that ignorant love gave me a life. But from within my illusion of him, I could not see him or know him. I did not have the art, or there's no art, to find the mind's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. I know it's kind of chilling. That's Macbeth that Shakespeare was talking about. Oh, yeah. I want to read this next poem because there's a kind of similar one coming up in the next book. So I wanted to read them both tonight and get the experience of seeing if they really, if we really need two of these poems. So this is from this book, To Our Miscarried One, age 30 now. Though I never saw you, only your clouds, I was afraid of you, of how you differed from what we had wanted you to be. And it's as if you waited then, where such waiting is done, for when I would look beside me, and here you are in the world of forms, where my wifehood is now, and every action with him. As if 1,000 years from now, you and I are in some antechamber where the difference between us is of little matter. You with perhaps not much of a head yet, dear garden one. You among the shovels and spades and wafts of beekeeper's shroud and sky blue kidskin gloves. That he left me is not much compared to your leaving the earth, your shifting places on it and shifting shapes. You threw off your working clothes of arms and legs and moved house from uterus to toilet bowl and jointed stem and sewer out to float the rivers and bays in painless pieces. And yet the idea of you has come back to where I could see you today as a small, impromptu God of the partial. When I leave for good, would you hold me in your blue mitt for the departure hence? I never thought to see you again. I never thought to seek you. And yes, so I'll read a few from Odes. And then move on to arias. This poem was inspired by Evie Shockley's poem, Ode to My Blackness, in her book, The New Black. I think that's a great book. Yeah, Evie Shockley. Ode to my whiteness. You were invisible to me. You went without saying. You were my weapon secret from myself. Whatever I got, you helped get it for me. You were my ignorance. Because of you, I was not innocent. I did not see that. You were my blinding light. My dreams had a blank area in the center, taking up most of the screen they played on in my sleep. A blazing circle that blanked out the core of the scene. I thought it was my mother's violence, but it was you, too. You, the unseen fat which fed me in the wilderness. You, my Masonic handshake. You, my stealth. You, my drone. You, my collaborator. You, my magician's cloak of steam. You, my dissembler. You, mine. I, yours. Irisless eyeball. You, my blindness. Inspiration of my helpless act. You, my silence. Evie's blackness, a dancer. you another, the two of you moving together. Aww, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Evie. Being here is so reminiscent of the many friends that we've been here with, those of us who are recidivist attendants at this wonderful Palm Beach Festival. And so I thought I would read this poem. It's called Ode to My Living Friends, and it was written in January 2010. Yeah. And among my living friends, whom I wrote the poem to then, were Lucille Clifton, Ruth Stone, Adrienne Rich, Seamus Heaney, Maya Angelou, Maxine Kuhlman, Galway, Phil Levine, Mark Strand, Lucy Brock-Broido, James Tate, C.K. Williams, Tony Hoagland, C.D. Wright. How blessed are we? And I said this to them then, Ode to my living friends. What a lengthy gap there has been between deaths. It seems as if none of those closest to us has gone for what seems months. For me, it's been so long that when I think of someone dying, I think of my mother and father, my farriers in out of nothing, out of the temporary rich. Sorry. Sorry, thank you. Farriers in out of nothing, out of the temporary rich something they were made of. I have carried them with me, not like a partial twin in a sling in front of me and against me, but in my body, in my brain cells. But you, my friends, my chosen and chosen by ones, I see you as built-in aspects of the earth, like elements, like members of the periodic table. I know we're mortal, the open door is there, but for weeks and weeks I have forgotten that I'm going to lose every one of you until the ones who are left lose me. When I was a child, I could not have lost you. I did not know that I would find you. I'm blessed that it will happen to me. Before it does, let me say, you were exactly who I'd been looking for without daring to imagine. Breast that presses against other breasts, it was you. Root of washed sweet flag, timorous pond snipe, nest of guarded duplicate eggs, it was you. Hands I have taken, face I have kissed, mortal I have ever touched, it was you. So I'm going to read some new ones now. This book is going to be called Arias, and it has a cover I forgot my rabbit was on my cover of Odes, sorry about that. So this is white with black letters, and Arias is black with white letters. It looks so good. And it's going to have arias, then it's going to have a lot of, or some poems that have to do with the world around us. And that section will be called For You, named after this poem that I'll read now, which is called For You. In the morning, when I'm pouring the hot milk into the coffee, I put the side of my face near the convex pitcher to watch the last round drop from the spout. and it feels like being cheek to cheek with a baby. Sometimes the orb pops back up, a ball of cream balanced on a whale's watery exhale. Then I gather my tools, the cherry sounding board tray that will rest on my lap, the phone, the bird book to look up the purple martin. I repeat them as I seek them so as not to forget. Tray, phone, martin. Tray, Von, Martin. Song was invented for you. All art was made for you. Painting, writing was yours, our youngest, our most precious, to remind us to shield you. All was yours. All that is left on earth with your body was for you. And this is called, I haven't read it so close to reading the other, but it's called Aria to Our Miscarried One, age 50 now. Every 20 years I turn and address you, not knowing who you were or what you were. You had been 3 months in utero when a guest came to visit with her virus, which I caught, and you died. Or it may be your inviolableness had been conceived with you. You might have been from the beginning going to last 14 weeks, though I had felt, as we lay on the living room floor, the couch pushed in front of the door at the pure gold hour at the core of your big sister's nap, that you had taken deep. I kept my feet up on the couch an hour. There was a recipe for a boy then. Abstain until the egg emerges, then send the long-tailed whippersnapper, the boy-making sperm, in to get there before the girls, who are slow, but if they get there early, can wait. The boy we conceived a month after you died made years later an ink X on a cushion of that sofa, as if to declare war on sisters and mothers, the oppressors of the male. Hello, male or female or both or neither. High mystery, high matter, high spirit moving through matter. 20 years ago, when your father left me, I wanted to hold hands with you, my friend in death, the dead one I knew best and not at all, who had deserted this life or been driven from it. I, your garden, oasis, desert. And I'd never laid down a stone for you. You seemed like a byway on the path from your sister to your brother. What was half formed in you, what was partial, how close I could have felt to you if I'd known what a hidden story I still was to myself. Dear one, I feel as if you're my elder, having departed without having breathed much earlier than I. By the time I saw you, you were in the water already, the sacred toilet water green of your grave. Let me call you kin, lost one. Let me call you landsman. I would say it needs to lose maybe 7 lines. I became a bit tired in the middle. I was thinking, this is nice. This is very discursive, conversational, and working as that. But I just to have come to landsman, that word for someone who came from the same country, often in Europe, often a Jewish term for someone who came from the same country. That's going to hold my heart to working on this poem. Now I'm getting a little nervous about this book. I bet it has more lines per poem on average than other books. All right, so I'm going to choose among these. Hospice Bed Song. I did not hear it when my sister and I had that valiant small vessel among our many hands and arms, that brigantine, our mother, that little caravel out on the water for its homeward journey, back to her beloved dead departed before her. We were bending over her mainsail and ropes and straining timbers over her crow's nest. And toward the finish, she seemed to begin to see the blue border of reunion. She did not sing it, but she had sung it. I must arise and go now. All my life she had sung it, all our lives, I should say. But whenever I was with my mother, there seemed to be no one else there, as when I was with her, I was always alone. And a small cabin built there, like her God when he squatted like a woman with the clay and wattles and started to make people. Now we were at the other end. There was a wind in that room, rising, falling. Our girl was shoaled. She was waiting for a tide to float her keel up from the rock and coral. And we did not hold her back. We held her so she would not be without company as she made her way to her native shore where she had come from. Her face became smoother and smoother, where peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the veils of the morning to where the cricket sings. She lifted free in the salt air on our faces, silent, silent in the quiet room, no breath. She was there at last, in the pure matter of the world, in the deep heart's core. I'll read a few more. I'm so glad that Laure-Anne and I had a chance to have a conversation with some of you yesterday. Usually in the middle of a reading, we talk. But since we've already done that, I'm just going from poem to poem to poem. I think I want to read one that I worked on today. This is, we're working and workshopping. There's a poem in Odes called Ode to a Merkin, which I didn't know until I wrote it or looked it up, that's like a kind of a sweet little wig for a lady's part. Perhaps a gentleman's as well. I had not thought of that. So this is like post-Odes, Merkin thoughts. Whether we, for a crone bald at both ends, her neath her pate as well as her above her, to sing the Merkin is one thing. I sang it when the bird could almost be heard in the bush, trilling in the curlicues. And then the deforestation of the moist mosses, ferns, and soft lichens progressed. And I appreciated when I'd begun to sprout a little woods, how bushy-tailed I was, the sweet cloud of the dark bunnies puff on me in front. Decades later, when I was approaching the last exits of middle age, when time was smoothing and denuding me, though my body and soul had their eye on a man, there suddenly rose up delicate coils of black bed springs from out of Venus's mound on me. The fresh spirals of a woman in her late prime. Whether we ever or whether we never, I gaze down at them now in wonder. The darling tiny bell pulls, the ringlets of bright daughter. So I think I'll read an aria and an ode. Yeah. First an yeah. Here's an aria. Sometimes we find subjects that we might not have written about so directly before, but that just take us up. And for me it was, would it ever be possible for me to describe the love of one's child? And the love of, in this case, it would be a mother for a daughter. And I didn't think it could be done. And I don't know if it can be. But this is one of maybe 3 or 4 poems of that subject in this new book. Firstborn aria. When some ease of spirit comes to me, what I think of first is my firstborn. I've spent 2/3 of my life wishing for safety and peace of mind and joy for her. And the wish is mother to the woman. There she is in my imagination, in my pyriform gyrus, her face for me among the densest soul matter there is. I looked at her those first weeks, hours by hours, no one else around, and watched her thinking without language. Her first smile was like my first sight of the earth. Once I'd been cleaned up and fed, and I slept and was laid near a window at dusk or dawn and woke. And I learned as a newborn, and then as the mother of a newborn, to see in the fresh, smooth brain of the face the heart work, and see in the quiet colors that came into her skin and went, and in the conversation between the pupil and the iris, the progress from first week Phrygian sailed blue toward the dark gloss of the garden earth. There is no face more essential in my life, not my mother's, whose barometric visage I watched for the dropping of the pressure which augured. Almost without fear, I would gaze into my daughter's spirit-level, round, bright face, forehead, eyebrows, eyelids upper and lower, that pair of subtle dancers. Even the nose spoke its animal speech, and the fine-tipped mouth. Her face was the book of my species I learned how to read on. I learned from her the powerlessness of one person toward another, and the power, the separateness, the bliss of her being other, the giving of the honeycomb, the bright calving. Cerebrum, cortex, cerebellum, at birth like cities in fresh sunlight. And as the child lives, the streets grow richer. A parent's life is a prayer for the child's life. She is like a holy figure in a niche, a cache. We are no more equals than I was with my own immediate ancestor. Even now, Even I think when we'll be 60 and 86, her radical impressionist psyche will be in my care, and she might be there when it's time to see me out. She might lay her palm on my hair. I might look in her eyes as I did when she was learning to focus and thank her for her having been born and go out on that thanking. There's nothing like writing a love poem, is there? So hard to do. So hard. The pitfalls of the sentimental, of the too much and the too little. So I think that in such a group as this, we are fed and nourished so that when we're writing, we have each other's company and we can stay the course with these poems. I'm actually going to read two more because I can't resist reading. Animal crackers. I liked to bite the hindquarters off the hippopotamuses and the humps off the camels. I loved tails and ears, like those of the hollow chocolate rabbit who appeared in my house when Jesus rose. The indented spots on the leopard sent me the deep engravings in the zebra's side. Sometimes I liked to save the head, then pop it in and attend, to feel that brain of dumb sugar and flour added to mine. And now that I am half old, this was written a few years ago, half old, I want some poet crackers, some smarts, some Whitmans, little busts or cameos of everyone to eat. I ate Christ and the bunny. I want a Levine matzo. I want Dickinson by her own recipe and Keats' bright oatmeal brooch. I need to read, lip read, tooth read, Ruth Stone, Gwendolyn Brooks, oh sweet, salty Rookheiser cracker. And I would like to be one, to be in those little boxes with woven handles like shed snake skins, edible Cannells, Cliftons, and Kunitzes. I wish, when I am dead, I could be among the English and American animal crackers. I think Keats actually said in a letter to someone, I wish when I am dead I could be among the English poets. I'll close with this and with my thanks, my love, my gratitude for your company. Take me with you, I'll take you with me wherever we go. Ode to the Hymen. I don't know when you came into being inside me, when I was inside my mother. Maybe when the involuntary muscles were setting, like rose jello. I love to think of you then, so whole, so impervious, you and the clitoris as safe as the lives in which you were housed. They would have had to kill both my mother and me to get at either of you. I love her at this moment as the big fortress around me, the matron head around the sweet meat of my maidenhead. I don't know who invented you to keep a girl's inwards clean and well-cupboarded. Dear wall, dear gate, dear stile, dear Dutch door, not a cat flap nor a swinging door, but a one-time piñata. How many places in the body were made to be destroyed once? You were very sturdy, weren't you? You took your job seriously. I'd never felt such pain. You were the hourglass lady the magician saws in two. I was proud of you. turning to a cupful of the bright arterial ingredient. And how lucky we were, you and I, that we got to choose when and with whom and where and why. Plush pincushion, somehow related to statues that wept. It happened on the rug of a borrowed living room, but I felt as if we were in Diana's woods, he and I and you together, or as if we were where the magma from the core of the earth burst up through the floor of the sea. Thank you for your life and death. Thank you for your flower girl walk before me, throwing down your scarlet petals. It would be years before I married, years before I carried within me a tiny baby hymen, near the eggs with other teensy hymens within them. But you unscrolled the carpet, leading me into the animal life of a woman. You were a sort of blood mother to me. First you held me close for 18 years, and then you let me go. Thank you.